before we get into today's program, I just want to invite or welcome any guests that are here or any folks that we haven't seen in a long time. Let's give you a round of applause. Hello. Good to see you again. We definitely really appreciate your company. I really feel like, you know, Keishu is actually away for a few weeks now, starting a couple of days ago. So I really feel the difference in how hard it is to just manage my life all myself. It's not easy. And she called me and said, I bet everything's easier now, right? Because I'm not, you know, asking you to do everything for me now, you know, for the baby and all that. I said, actually, no, everything's harder. Edmund thinks I'm like his personal butler. And I need help here. So needless to say, I've just been going through drive-thrus and just like doing the college lifestyle all over again while I can do it. It's kind of interesting. But things are going really well for us. She won't be here for a few weeks, but you know, we talk every day. And you know, what I'm hearing is, oh my God, I've only been here a few days and I'm so much bigger now. I'm getting so fat. And I said, well, of course you are. There's two of you. And apparently that was not the right answer. It's not what she wanted to hear. And then what else did I try? I said, I think you look better. This looks great on you. She's like, that's not helping. I feel like a balloon and a watermelon stuck together. So she's doing good. And but, you know, a lot of people ask about the morning sickness, and you know, I'm sure we'll look back and go, wow, this was hard. But I thought I would share some thoughts that are going through my mind as I actually observe the other side of the story. A lot of interestingly awesome things are happening too. Definitely, I think there is something about her that seems more beautiful now. Definitely. And I was thinking about that. You know, you go to the supermarket and you see all those magazines that say, try these makeup tips and drive your man wild, or try this, XYZ. And it's always those things, right? Make him go crazy for you. Make him need you. And I was thinking, I don't think you'll ever see a magazine that says, get pregnant with your husband. That will make him crazy for you. But actually, that's the truth. That is the truth right there. Because connection just got so much stronger. And I feel like the sense of aliveness has increased. And the sense of life moving forward. And I want to tie this into last week's message where we talked about knowledge versus your heart, your brain versus your heart. So sometimes you can learn a lot, but your heart is not engaged in that learning. And you have a brain knowledge, but very few people really think about the process of learning with the heart. And this is why some musicians know every scale there is to know, yet when you listen to their music, it sounds flat or you're not very interested. Or you can listen to B.B. King, who probably barely knew what an A chord was. He just picked up the guitar and started playing it. Yet that moves your soul. So there's a certain knowledge of the heart that I wanted to explore in a few sermons in a row. And what I'm kind of noticing is that knowledge of the heart is not an easy thing to tack down. It's a process that's a little bit trickier. So I wanted to talk about it a little bit today. You know, I was reading, I'm reading a lot of New Testament, and in Ephesians 4:20, Paul says, to learn Christ, you have to renew the spirit of your mind. The spirit of your mind. I thought that was interesting. It's not change your attitude. You know, you're going to hear a lot of successful, what are those positive thinking guys? And they're good. But it's always about changing your attitude. Change your mindset. But this was a very interesting wording, change the spirit of your mind. And I kind of look it up. I'm like really intrigued by this passage, so I look it up, and it says renew the spirit of your mind. And the word renew in Greek, the original Greek says to change the flow or direction of. And I thought that was starting to get me somewhere. Because when you're acting in love, you're flowing. There's action. And last week I was quoting a philosopher who said there's no amount of thinking about Newton's law of physics that ever put a billiard ball into motion. Studying the law of physics won't move a bowling ball down the alley or a billiard ball across the table. And so the law of studying the beginning of the universe, it won't ever get to the actual force that started the universe, which is God's love. Love creates motion, right? Emotion is motion, right? So wanting to look at this, we know how to increase our intellectual capacities. We would take a test, we would study, take another test. But how do we do that with our spiritual growth or our maturity? A couple things that came to mind was patience. That feels like a quantifiable thing. We know when I moved down here from New York, I was not a patient person. You should talk to Keishu about that. She will love to tell you the details. When I got to Florida, I thought everybody was so slow. I was so slow. You know, you're waiting in line at Pollo Tropical, and for the second time that day, and the person in front of you is starting a conversation with the cashier. It's like, no, this is not a place for conversations. In New York, you order. That's it. The waiter should say nothing more than, "What do you want?" And they do. That's how they do it in New York, right, Susan? Oh, that's right. I love it, actually. I still like it. What do you want? Get to the point. Let's move. Here, it's like, hey. Oh, hey. I'm back there going, I'm so hungry right now. Oh, man. Did you meet my friend? I'm like, oh, no. 3 more friends come in the door. I'm there 20 minutes, you know. It's ridiculous. So Florida, different pace, and I had to learn patience. But actually, patience is a good virtue to learn. Patience is a virtue of God for sure. Being patient and thinking about mankind perfecting itself, getting itself out of the ditch. How long has he had to wait for this? A lot of patience, you know? And actually, I'll just go on a little tangent here. We've all heard the phrase, have faith in God, right? Have faith in God. But the Bible that I was reading had a bunch of notes on this one section. I'm like, why are there so many notes on this? It says, actually, the original says, have the faith of God. That's different than in God. Have the faith of God. And I was thinking, that's odd. Why would God need faith if he knows everything and he's all powerful? If you know the result, why would you need faith in it? He knows. And then I was realizing that must be, the way that it's hitting me this week, is that it must be that he has the faith that mankind will reciprocate with their free will into a true love dynamic. You know, he could just wipe us out and, you know, take out all the bad guys, leave all the good guys, fix all the problems, all powerful, gotcha. Maybe he can do that. I think he can. But at what cost? He would have to erase our free will, and then we would all be Siri robots. Hello, mankind, do you love me? You know, you'd have to press like a Siri button, and mankind would go, I love you, God. And that's not what he wants. He wants to be able to give us the choice to actually choose evil, but not choose it. With free will, choose goodness. So the faith of God, God actually has to have faith that we're going to get our act together. I thought that was quite powerful. Thousands of years worth of patience and faith. I think those two go together. And the other thing I was thinking is love is not just attitude like patience. Love is also action. And the more love you have, the more action. Like I'm getting up at 7 in the morning when I'm not supposed to because Keishu's gone and I got to do the admin duty now. That's an action I wasn't able to take before. But the love power gets me out of bed. And, you know, we teach that love is actually not a two-way street. People say that relationships are a two-way street. I feel like that's a little oversimplified. Love is actually more spherical. It's 360 degrees. Because that gift you gave to your sister, she's going to pass on that joy to somebody else. And then that person, and it kind of bounces around in a sphere to your parents, back down, to God, inward, outward. And there's actually a spherical motion, kind of makes me think of a globe or a ball. And that's something that rolls and moves. And you compare this to something like learning out of a textbook, which is very flat. And we talk about truth being something that's very straight, right? A real truth has to be straight so that no matter kind of how you look at it, it won't tip over. But love is not like that. Love's not a two-way street. Love's not a straight line. Love is a sphere. And love is meant to create action. You know, the 5 love languages, love this book. Everybody pick up a copy if you can. But all the languages are actions, right? Quality time, that's spending time together. Words of affirmation, that's speaking words. So if you think about all the love languages, it's all action-based. And I wanted to tie this into, remember the homework from last week? I had a homework quote. Yeah. Okay, so I'll read it for you guys. It's in the gospel. It's Matthew 7:3-5. 7:3-5. And I think it's interesting that very few people catch the second half of this quote. And we touched on it last week, but I want to bring it back up because to me, it was like mind blown when I started thinking about this. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Stop right there. We all know this story, right, guys? The speck in the eye, but the plank in your own. Don't be a hypocrite. Clean up your act. That's where most people leave the lesson. Just don't be a hypocrite. But that's not what Jesus actually ends up saying. How wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the mote of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote of thy brother's eye. Then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote of thy brother's eye. The real verb and the end of the story. You know, anytime you read a little story or a little lesson, you got to read the end. And the end here is that you can see your brother's eye better when you clean up your own stuff. So it's a little different than just don't be a hypocrite. It's take action, help each other. I want you to work on yourself, but then help each other out when you figure it out. And to me, this really solidifies that love, the teachings of love always lead back to some kind of action or some kind of motion or some kind of progress in your life. The difference between learning intellectually and from the heart are hard to explain, but I told you guys that today I would try to express a couple things that I've learned. And one is, or that I've just tried to battle with. And one is maintaining an attitude, a certain kind of attitude. That's actually quite hard. And I believe strongly in maintaining an attitude of hope. Hope is a very powerful thing. And I think it was Dietrich Bonhoeffer who spent some time in concentration camps, who said, you know, they can take away my family, they can take away my occupation, they can take away everything, clothes, you name it, but they can't take away my right to choose my attitude. I thought that was quite powerful. Your attitude is something no one can take away. it's precious, something that you get to choose every day. And so if we're able to, when we read scripture, when we pray, when we spend time with family, I want to encourage us not just to learn things on an intellectual level, but also let them soak onto our heart so that we can change our attitude, have more patience, kick into more action. I read something recently that said actually depression is repressed anger. I thought that was really interesting. You're stopping the flow of some problem. Maybe you're angry about something, maybe this or that. Something's on your heart, and you're stopping it. And then it creates a depression. So as we kind of go through the awareness movement, I think psychology and spirituality are going to keep merging to find these truths that are actually all over the Bible, really. I want to give you so I like giving practical advice too. So I want to give you guys one more homework. We're going to talk about this one more week. But I have another homework. I feel like when you're learning something, not for your brain, but for your soul to mature, I think it's better to read or study something very slowly and learn it in a way that's very quality rather than a way that's very quantity. And like the way that this quote stuck out to me taught me something in a way that I hadn't heard before anybody say. But it's because I was reading really slowly. I think I was really tired. I was just reading so slowly. So some people think, oh, you read a lot. You're going to read hundreds of pages a day, or reading condition. You got to read a certain number of pages. I'd like to challenge that thought. You don't have to read a certain number of pages. You can read one passage or one page, maximum. So I'd like to give you a couple tips. Read slowly. This is a homework for next week. Read a passage very slowly and see what you can get out of it that wasn't there before. It could even be a speech. It could even be not the Bible. It could be something. It could be something in unification thought. It could be something, you name it. It could even be our family pledge. There's a lot in there. Read something slowly and ponder it. And my second tip that I've just kind of made up, but I think it really works for me, is when you hear something that you can feel like an aha moment, close the book. Stop. One of the best musicians I ever met in my life told me, Joe, you're practicing too much. You practice it so hard that you're like beating yourself into the ground and you just you exhaust yourself. And he told me that he would practice until he felt like he got a little better. Just click, a little better. So I want to share that on. When I'm reading now, and you can try this, when you get an aha moment, close the book and start thinking about it or write about it. It's a really good exercise. I'll be listening to radio, maybe 89.3, and when I hear something really good, I turn the radio off. It's actually it's very counterintuitive, but once you listen to like another hour of information, the inspiration and the depth of what you just heard is kind of gone. So I would like to encourage you all to do that. Find one passage this week that you soak on for a while, that you marinate on this one thing for a while. And I think you'll find, and just think to yourself, how is this going to apply to what I'm going through right now? It's a really good mental and heart level challenge. And I would like to just say, if you also are feeling like, like your relationship to religion or theology is a little bit cerebral, try thinking about the next phase of your life. I know that's working for me in KSHU. When we are starting to plan the next phase of our life, all of a sudden things get a little bit more exciting, and things start feeling like, wow, where's our heart really at? What do we care about? So I think it's important to always get back to that, especially in a church setting. It's a good place to remind yourself, what are our core values? Where's our direction? These are things that can help you learn your spiritual and mature and your kind of soul maturity. And I kind of wanted to stress that for a while because I don't feel that in regular society. I don't feel that the maturity of the soul is really something people talk about or stress. You know, I heard this one last thing. I want to share one last thing with you guys that was very cathartic for me and Keishu. We were having just misunderstandings over and over again on this one topic of vacations. And she wanted to go on vacations. I don't like traveling around. I'm kind of tired of traveling, so I don't want to do that. And I heard somebody on the radio saying, actually, you should discuss with your spouse your definition of prosperity, because your definition of prosperity is different than what other people define prosperity as. So this is also a good way to learn how to communicate on a heart level. You know, people say, oh, you need communication skills in a marriage, but they don't really explain what to communicate about. You know, it's not just venting your feelings. It's got to be a little bit more structured, a little bit more crafty than that. So something that really helped us get on the same page, it's probably why we're kind of entering family world now, is that we realize that we have completely different definitions of prosperity. So we both want to succeed in life, but it's like totally different planets. And the guy on the radio was saying, yeah, as a husband, he was counting job, promotions, side businesses, bank account, you name it. And the wife was thinking, how many birthday cards did we remember to send to the neighbors? How many good chats did we have with our kids? Are they doing well in school? You know, totally different. Like when they actually had to write it down, their vision of prosperity was totally different. So that's just one example of how you can start thinking. You can look at that topic and then think, okay, maybe that's what I'm going to pray and read about this week. How can me and my wife get on the same page with prosperity or spirituality or, you know, fill in the blank? So I want to encourage you to do that. Next week, I really want to get into the final kind of phase about what I'm thinking and learning about the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law, and how dangerous it is to forget about the spirit of the law, the spirit of God's word, and our own spiritual path and journey. So thank you very much, guys.